Morning, welcome everyone. I Chair Hansen. Going to call the mechanical board meeting of March 6, 2024 to order at 9:30 a.m. Katie, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Walter Cottle.
Here.
He is present in the room. Kevin Duell.
Here, virtually.
Thank you, Kevin. Chris Miller.
Virtually present.
Thank you. Jed Schumer is absent, excused. Ted Zook.
Here.
Thank you, Ted, virtually. Edward Louie.
Here, virtually.
Thank you, Edward. Kevin Ferguson.
Here.
Thank you, present in the room. Eric Fanning, Vice Chair.
Present, virtually.
Thank you, Eric. And Jay Hansen, Chair.
Present via the internet. Would like to know if there are any changes that anybody would like to see to today's agenda. Okay, hearing none. Chair Hansen rules the agenda and order of business to be approved. Has everyone gone over the draft minutes of the September 13th, 2003? Does anybody have anything to interject, anything to add, anything to bring up from the minutes from our last meeting? No. Hearing none, we rule those accepted and final. Okay, so our next scheduled meeting will be June 5th. Something special about that day. Anyway, June 5th, 2024. Same time and same channel. There is a copy of the board meeting calendar that you can click on in our agenda that was emailed to us and see the rest of the meetings through December. Chair will read a welcome. Okay, we're waiting for this part. It's the exciting part. So I want to take the opportunity to welcome two new members to our board. We'll start with Edward Louie. Edward was confirmed on February 8th of 2024 to the mechanical board in the position representing the public at large. Edward's term began February 16th, 2024, and is serving a partial 4-year term ending on June 30th of 2027. Is Edward on this call?
Yes, I am. Hello. Thank you for the introduction. I'm happy to serve on this board.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Edward?
Sure. Yeah. So I work at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. It's one of 17 U.S. Department of Energy labs peppered throughout the country. Our main campus is in Richland, Washington. We have satellite offices in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, and I work in the Portland region. Prior to PNNL, I had a year stint where I was an energy verifier. Specifically, I did most of my work in the Energy Performance Score program. So I have lots of experience in the world of installation inspections and also commissioning and testing of mechanical equipment, mechanical ventilation, heat pumps and furnaces. And so that's kind of my work history. And then education-wise, I have a master's degree in energy and environmental policy and a bachelor's in civil engineering. And then outside of work, I love tinkering with heat pumps, and also have my EPA 608 universal license.
That is fantastic, Edward. I have a service job position available for you at any moment if you wish to pursue your hobbies of tinkering with heat pumps. That is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I also would like to welcome Kevin Ferguson. Kevin, are you on the call today with us?
Yes, I'm here live.
Okay, excellent. Kevin was confirmed February 8th, also February 8th, 2024, to the Mechanical Board in the position of Municipal Mechanical Inspector, possessing the highest level of Mechanical Inspector certification issued by the DCBS. His term began February 16th, 2024, and is serving a partial 4-year term that will also end June 30th of 2027. Kevin, you want to introduce us a little bit more to yourself and your background?
Sure. My name's Kevin Ferguson. I've been an inspector here in the state of Oregon for 17 years. I've done stints in Lynn County and Benton County and the city of Corvallis, along with Josephine County, and I've been with Hillsborough now for 12 years. I've been married 36 years, got six grandkids and 2 little great-granddaughters right now. So I'm happy to serve on the board. Thanks.
Excellent. You are a busy man. Excellent. Thank you very much, Kevin. Pierre, are you ready? Because you're up next.
Thank you, Chair Hansen, members of the board. Edward and Kevin, welcome to the Mechanical Board. Thanks for joining. For the record, Pierre Sabah, Policy Analyst with the division. This is public comment, and as of this morning, we have received a request for public comment to the board from Robert Greenway. Mr. Greenway, if you're here for public comment, you can come forward now and please identify yourself for the board.
Pierre, how much time do we have for public comment?
Time allotted is 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right, my name's Robert Greenway. I live at 2223 Southwest Academy, Dallas. I am a general citizen who has comments about mechanical stuff. My background is pretty limited to one expertise, and that is in wells and pumps, water wells and water pumps. So I'm familiar with electrical, plumbing, stuff like that. My most recent, past 20 years, I've been an estimator and a project manager for multi-million-dollar projects for both municipal, commercial, governmental agencies. Why I'm coming to the board is for one specific reason right now, and that has to do with your balanced whole house ventilation. Code 1505.4. I've been studying this because I have one of these supposed units in my house that never functioned from day one. So I started doing research, been researching it for 6 weeks, have talked to came in and talked to the acting manager, told her the deficiencies and stuff, have spent many of emails and physical talking to Mr. Mark here. So I guess I'll just start with it, what I'm going to say. Supposedly the why of the balanced whole air system is because there is bad air in homes. This is supposedly, from what I'm reading, falls under a health and safety concern. There's seems to be very little oversight. One of the comments is, can inspectors say when they leave a site to provide occupancy permit, a system is functional, as with electrical, hot water, heat, fire alarms, etc.? And the answer to that is a resounding no. Does the DCB require any type of metering for their inspectors for this type of work? From what I find out, the answer to that is also no. So I feel that the board has dropped the ball in implementing this very important part of your mechanical. Otherwise, I guess you wouldn't have put it in effect. The code enforcement, in my opinion, has stripped your own code. The DCB Technical Bull in June 2021 has a pretty extensive background on what they want or expect, but the actual code is stripped to bare bones, which is less than half of the stuff that was recommended by that bulletin, making the code virtually useless. I tried to use the word, I looked up the word ambiguous or irrational. Irrational seems to fit the code part of it, that it's not logical or reasonable. You cannot enforce it to the extent that you can't measure and quantify what's being only way. The HRV seems to be gone by the wayside, from what I understand from inspectors, that they're using some other criteria, which I haven't figured out, because it just says in the code other ways. If you do the bulletin, it shows different ways that you can get them, which is the intake and the outtake, or the balance system. But without any type of measurement devices, there is no way to quantify whether it meets the code. And the only basic code there is that the system run continual for the most part, and two, that it puts out a specific CFM. Okay, if you don't have an HRV or an ERV, there's no way you can measure it unless you have a measurement device that can read, from what I'm understanding, that can read the speed of the air by the ductwork, that you can tell what the CFM is, okay? And from what I'm finding out and calling around and things, that inspectors don't have any device to do that. So basically, the system is, worthless, in my opinion. Besides being that, in my subdivision, when I found out that mine didn't work, I went to all the other houses in the area that have, since the code was enforced, to find out if their systems run and what they have. And 4 out of 5 units were not functional and had never been functional from the day that they were installed. So that's pretty sad. And then it's been 2.5 years, and nobody seems to know who is responsible for the functionality of the system. Is it the contractor? Is it the inspector? Is it the builder? There's no criteria. Talked to Mark about what kind of training has been given to inspectors on this particular item, and I asked him if there was some kind of workbook or something that was put forth for this, and he says no. So basically, no one knows, from what I've talked to from the people that I have firsthand knowledge of, that no one knows basically how these systems work, okay? I've talked to the
All right,
contractor.
I would like to kind of jump in and ask you to wrap up, if you could, in the next 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm not talking long. Okay, so basically the contractor did not, the contractor doesn't know the, how they work. I'll read to see in our unit, the inspectors. When I went to the inspectors in my area, they didn't know. The owner, the builder didn't know how the system works. They just said when they gave the orientation that it works 20 off and 40 on, which is impractical because it doesn't work per your codes. The HRV can work, but only in limited use. Handler is a single speed unit, so it has no function of changing the intake of said in and out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Pierre, can I get the name of the public commenter?
Mr. Robert Greenway.
Mr. Greenway. Did you buy the house new from the builder?
Yes. Oh. Thank you. Sorry, can't hear it. Yes, sir.
And the builder provided the system you're referencing? Is it an ERV or an HRV system?
It's an HRV system.
It's an HRV?
Yes, sir.
And the builder is responsible for providing you with your domicile. You bought it directly from them.
Yes,
I
sir.
would think the builder, in my world, and I think it's pretty standard, the builder should be able to address your questions and concerns. And if he does not, I think you might have some legal action, I guess, against the builder.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing, nothing in the codes or anything of who's responsible. They don't even know how they work. When I got my orientation and they told me about this unit.
I don't think
also-
code,
Pardon me?
I hear you, but I don't think the code's going to comment on the basic consumerism principles going on here.
Right, well, yeah, but I mean, like I said about you're an inspection and you certify inspectors. So if you don't have them to have the, whether the system works, in my area or not, you've got millions of them all over the state. You don't just deal with my area.
Right.
So
right.
it sounds
So-
like from what I'm finding out that there is no, that the enforcement and thing is lacking. You have no way of measurement and you have no way of enforcement, whether, you're saying, you think that the builder's the one responsible. What I got from the builder, and I was one of the last ones in this subdivision, the most I got out of them is that the system runs 20 off and 40 on, okay? And like I said, after doing the research and stuff on this, that I found out that that is impractical with this unit. It doesn't have a intermittent mode. I have studied all the things about the HRVs. I've talked to the manufacturer, so the whole idea of this balanced air system is not practical. It's not sustainable. It's not usable. And, basically, I hate to say this, but you saying you think they should be responsible. The thing, the code, says that it's an important part. I got a certificate of occupancy, that says it's safe to live in this house. The reason why, from what I can read in all the literature and stuff, the reason for the air handler system, especially the word balanced whole house air system, is to keep the house safe in the way of bad air in the house, which would include carbon dioxide, volatiles, VOCs, mold. If the system doesn't work, then you're not doing that. Especially the system should be working from day one, just like electric is. It's inspected. The HVAC, or the heat at this time of year, cooling is, I guess, optional, but you have to have heat. Hot water, you go into a house, you have hot water. Well, see, the people that go into these houses, this is all 55 and older community. I've talked to most of them that have this particular units, or supposedly will have some kind of unit like this. They have no idea what they were. They weren't told. They weren't functioning because I personally inspected them. Okay, and most of them said, I said, has this thing ever run? And most of them say, it has never run since day one.
Okay, I appreciate your comments and your time, Mr. Greenway. Are there any other comments that the board might have for Mr. Greenway?
So this is Edward Louie. Thank you for coming and making these comments. I respect those comments, and I will say that, yes, this is a issue that the U.S. Department of Energy and the national labs are aware of, that mechanical ventilation commissioning and the education aspect from the turnover of the domicile to a customer, whether it be a renter or a owner, these are areas that need to be continuously worked on. And it is my understanding that there is a national both training and skilled people that have the equipment and the knowledge to be able to commission mechanical ventilation systems. And so this is, again, something that various funds, including there are sub-funds within Inflation Reduction Act that are then going to states to help with training and education, so that when these systems are installed, that they do perform as expected. So this is a work in progress. As with anything that's new, it takes a good number of years to go from, the great idea to being, the perfect idea that works. So my short answer is things are being done.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Edward. Mark, I would like to know if you would be able to comment a little bit on the mandate of building codes and the individual boards and what we are ultimately responsible for, and maybe as much so what we are not responsible for and cannot take on the responsibility for, as in commissioning and maintenance and things of that nature. Could you give a brief comment regarding the function of this board and building codes for Mr. Greenway, please?
Brief, we'll attempt it, Chair Hansen.
Okay.
Mark Heizer with the division. Yes, this board is responsible for the commercial mechanical provisions in the code, and yes, we do make recommendations. The code section that he's citing is something under the residential mechanical provisions, and of course we look at those and give feedback on that. The code itself goes through, yes, sort of, it's the design and construction requirements, and we're involved through actual certificate of occupancy. So once the building inspectors are done, we do not involve maintenance and sort of after the home is, or building is approved for turnover to the occupants and for occupancies. I'm not very good on that side. I'm more the technical. That's the general for this board, is for looking at the mechanical provisions for commercial structures and what goes into the commercial mechanical code.
So, Mr. Greenway, the commissioning, first of all, this is the commercial board, and there is a residential board that I might recommend you investigate. But these boards can only reference national standards for the construction, the materials that go into construction, and the way those materials are constructed and delivered to the end user. We are attempting to achieve a performance, but we leave all performance standards to the national bodies. And so our hands are tied regarding performance. But I go back to the consumer side of this thing. I would highly recommend that you lean on your builder to come and show you how the system they sold you works. That's just a demand that they do that. And if they are not able to do that, there are other means that you have available to you to advance that conversation. All right, I would like to move on. Do we have, Pierre, do we have any other public comment?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. For the record, Pierre Sabah, Policy Analyst. We don't have anyone else signed up for public comment, but if there's someone in the room or virtually that would like to speak now, this is your chance. So please come forward and identify yourself. Seeing and hearing none, it's back to you, Chair Hansen. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, you're up next. Mark Heizer will discuss all the new and exciting things that have happened within the program since our last meeting.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. Once again, Mark Heizer with the division. For our program update, we would like first to introduce a new employee. Ann Geyer has just joined staff here under the energy program. She comes to us with background from the green building and sustainability world, and also some prior experience relative to federal environmental policy, I believe, as well. This is a position that came to us relative to House Bill 3409. Other items that we would like to bring up is really a reminder about, we've had some questions about the use of CSST gas pipe, the corrugated stainless steel flexible pipe. There has always been a little question about the bonding requirements of the pipe in the manufacturer's installation instructions, which can be additional or to what would normally be required under the electrical code for bonding a pipe. We'll call this the yellow version pipe that does not have the additional grounding or protection, does require the manufacturer's installation instructions for most all of them require bonding beyond the electrical code, and that this is, we just wanted to make a reminder that this is electrical work for that bonding portion because it is tying into the electrical panel, and just making sure people are aware of that part. We are currently proceeding further with the 2024 Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code and the use of 90.1 2022 for the commercial energy provisions. We are expecting that if the ComCheck is further available by soon online, that we will have a July 1 a full official adoption date with, of course, a 6-month grace period to continue to use the 2021 Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code. So that is still moving forward via the SEEB, and still waiting to make sure we have all the tools available to use the code. One other item is that currently there is also coming for many people a new, I guess we'll call it a tool that is available for determining snow load, wind load, Louie fire interface. I believe it's a one size does it all tool through the division. I believe I'll look out to my staff out here. Oregon State University and several others are on this, so that will help people with their design criteria. But with that, there have been a few questions about, and something we may be looking at. This is more on the residential side, but some discussion we'll have with the mechanical board at some point, maybe about, since we're going to be looking at snow load, weather protection potentially for condensing units. Since we're seeing a lot more heat pumps, we've been used to protection of these units. You know, we turn off the outdoor condenser in summer and forget about it until next winter. We're having a lot more operating most of the year, and seeing movement in parts of the country with more extreme weather areas, looking at potential protection for those units. Lastly, on the program update, has to do with our minor labels program and the expectation that it will be going statewide soon. And I'd like to turn it over to Pierre for a minute on this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. For the record, Pierre Sabal, Policy Analyst of the Division. Mark is correct. Our minor label program will be going statewide. We anticipate a July 1st effective date. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be soliciting a rulemaking advisory committee for this statewide implementation. After that, we will have a public hearing probably sometime in June if people want to comment then too, and we'll bring it back to the board to show the board at our June 5th meeting. But we do anticipate our minor label program going fully statewide as of July 1, 2024.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Pierre. Okay, moving on to, well, first of all, Mark, does that sum up all the exciting things that have happened within the board since our last meeting?
Yes, again, Mark Heizer for the division, and that will be all for program update. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to communications. I see that we have three items. Mark, how about item A?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. Mark Heizer with the division. The first item on the agenda, item 4A, is an interpretation 2302 regarding condensate drainage from heat pump water heaters. We had received some questions from around the state. We were getting reports of drainage from the heat pump water heaters that were freezing up and, of course, causing the units to cease operation. And looking at the installation instructions and our current language, we wanted to get some clarifying language of first whether or not it's covered under the mechanical code or the residential code, whether about termination locations and routing of the lines through subject spaces subject to freezing, and then also some additional clarifications about the manufacturer's installation instructions for cold climates and what would constitute a cold climate, because it's very hard. Many of the heat pump water heaters have recommendations when you're in a cold climate, or it's questionable about whether or not it can run through certain spaces. So we've put out the interpretation to help with enforcement, to give our enforcement people a leg to stand on when they cite a water heater going to the exterior. We've tried to find if there's anything happening at the national code level, and nothing at the plumbing board, UPC, IPC, IMC, nothing has really happened coming out for the 2024 code, but this is just something that where the condensate drainage language is really centered around a drain that is condensing water in the summertime and it's warm. And so we're providing this additional guidance because this is a refrigeration coil essentially that's draining condensate all year round and including in cold winter conditions. So that's the reason for the interpretation we've put out. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I read that publication and I appreciated it very much, especially over the last couple of weeks. How about SAM 2401, Mark?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. Moving on to item B, SAM 2401 for the IECC. There had been, for residential construction, we have parts of the state that border areas that use the IECC versus our Oregon code, and we had a request to consider whether or not local builders throughout the state could potentially use the 2021 IECC as an alternative to the Oregon Residential Specialty Code Chapter 11. And for single-family homes, townhomes, duplexes, this allows an equivalent performance path to be used for in lieu of Chapter 11 of the Residential Code. So the IECC path is available for those that are contractors that may be coming in from out of state that are used to the IECC. Any questions?
So we are allowing that?
For 1 and 2 family homes, yes. So if you're building under the ORSC, that is being allowed as an alternative path. They're
statewide?
Statewide, yes.
Okay, let's move on to C, SAM 2402.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. Once again, Mark Heizer with the Division 4. This is a change for the Oregon Residential Specialty Code that the 2023 does have a requirement for smart stats. We had put in some language, many of the VRF equipment, mini splits, to try and allow them. Many of those pieces of equipment cannot use anything other than their proprietary thermostats and wouldn't be able to use the smart stats that are available. So we had put in some language to try and address that, but we did not cover all variable speed compressor systems. So there are some heat pumps out there and cooling systems that are at higher efficiency, and the standard good old residential big cube sitting outside type systems. This is to to expand that exception, and it aligns with language that's in the Washington residential code as well, about the use of these smarter thermostats, that if it's a variable speed compressor and the manufacturer's instructions say that you have to use brand X's thermostat, that is still allowed. This will normally be a higher efficiency piece of equipment anyway due to the variable speed compressor.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, we have no appeals. Because we are such a good board, we have no unfinished business. We are very effective and efficient. Under new business, though, we will hear from both Pierre and Mark regarding our board review and determination of the division's proposed process and timeline for developing and adopting the 2025 Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. Pierre, could you introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair Hansen, members of the board. For the record, Pierre Sabah, Policy Analyst for the Division. As Chair Hansen mentioned, this agenda item is for the board review and determination on the Division's proposed process and timeline for developing and adopting the 2025 Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. Some background, ORS 455020 requires that the Division, with the approval of the Mechanical Board, adopt minimum standards for the construction, reconstruction, alteration, and repair of buildings and other structures, as well as the installation of mechanical devices and equipment. These standards are adopted as our OMSC, or Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. The Division works with building officials, technical committees, advisory boards, and the public to adopt, amend, and interpret the provisions of the Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. The Division's goal is to have the 2025 Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code in place by October 1, 2025, with a 6-month phase-in period. The full anticipated timeline that we're asking the board to review and approve today is included in your board packet. I am here to answer questions about the timeline. Mark is here for any technical questions. A motion is required for this item, examples of which are in your board packet. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Mark, I've convinced Mark to be available to answer any of our questions around this. Thank you, Mark. Has everyone present had a chance to look through the agenda and that timeline on page 1 and 2? Does anybody need some time to look that over? Does anybody not have access to it that would like to table this so that it could be reviewed and acted on the next meeting? Nobody wants that option. Okay. Are there any questions about this timeline? Any discussion around this? Because we do need to move to a motion to adopt or not to adopt this timeline.
So Edward Louie here. I do have a question.
Yep.
The question is, do you, IV.A, anticipate any changes to the, or looking kind of perceiving forward, any changes that would require greater discussion, debate, that would result in this timeline being not met on schedule if we were to adopt it.
My experience with this in the past, I've been through this three times, this evolution for various different codes, not just the mechanical code, but there are always changes. There are always things to address, to tweak. Oregon has all of its own little unique and take on just about everything. Of course, we're Oregonians. But there have never been, I can really recall, a big hot item that really took a lot of effort to drill through. So we've been able to move through this fairly effectively. Unless Mark sees something coming down the pipe that he could comment on, the timeline looks pretty good to me. It reflects timelines we've undertaken in the past, and we've been successful.
Through the board, Chair Hansen, Pierre Sabah, Policy Analyst. To answer the question, we bring this timeline forward today to give us the anticipated time for those kinds of pressing issues. As you can see on the timeline, we have a vast amount of time to get solicitation for public proposals and committee members, and then when we do code review committee, whether it's done in one committee, one meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 4 meetings, that's why we have that July and August timeline necessary for those kinds of things, as Chair Hansen mentioned as well. So I don't anticipate we will have any pushback, but if Mark has anything to add.
Yes. Again, Mark Heizer with the division. Just wanted to, I guess for some of the new members, sort of how the process goes is that, of course, we take the current rule is the current Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code. What we do is develop which includes all current Oregon amendments to the code. So that's our starting point. This process takes a look at what is different in the 2024 International Mechanical Code. We see what the changes are. We have sort of a list of items. There will normally be from IMC, they will have a substantive changes list. So what changed from their 2021 International Mechanical Code to the 2024, we'll go through that list of items, and also where Oregon has had done previous changes to code and what we have in ours to sort of that's sort of the baseline. Will we move to the model code or stay with current code is sort of our position and what we vote on. In the end, we have some things that we have items like we try and stay ahead of them on refrigerants to make sure that all new refrigerants are available for use. Our requirements for exhaust in dwelling units is beyond mechanical code. That's due to some work from 2009, and we're maintaining that. It is the one item probably that'll have a half a day or more is probably residential ventilation and what we're seeing on that. But otherwise, it's nice that the mechanical code is pretty well set and there aren't major things happening in the codes right now for that, from what we're seeing of going through the process. Health, safety, and welfare and general safety is pretty well resolved, other than probably refrigeration and some ventilation items will be probably the bigger discussion pieces. And maybe looking at other issues that are out there in more detail on things like condensate drainage. We are getting a lot of questions on that, and one of the things that I'm going to be doing some outreach to the contractors on is about drainage from small VRF units that are mounted on an outside wall. Our both model code has for a 3/4 inch drain on everything, but a lot of these small systems come with factory line systems. It's a short set refrigerant line and a condensate drain that doesn't meet model code. So small things for consideration like that, and what would be reasonable for installation. We'll hopefully have some discussions on that, but we do expect that we can get through the timeline, and yes, we're a little bit easier than some of the other codes. You can be proud that yours gets published first and it's done. So that's my only bragging point I can ever have at these meetings. And so yes, but it is really important to begin the process as soon as possible, and we look at this to make sure that we can have published books available on the set timeline. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And I just wanted to add a little bit to that perspective. I was on the review committee for the last round of the mechanical code, and I found the process went very smoothly and the timeline was rather comfortable. So this seems apropos.
Yeah, the staff does a great job highlighting the things that we need to focus on, that the code review committee needs to focus on. So we get through this pretty well. Is that code review committee determined yet? The makeup of that committee, by chance? Pierre, Mark?
Chair Hansen, if you look at your timeline, solicitation for the review committee begins March 11th. The division will post a notice on the website asking for interest, and then the mechanical board will approve the committee member list at the June 5th meeting.
Okay, excellent. So, Edward, you might want to think about, if you got the time, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, hint, hint. Okay. Can we get, I would like to challenge the committee to bring forward, I would like to challenge this board to bring forward a motion at this time. If there
Chair
are
Hansen,
no-
the vice chair has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got part of my Zoom thing covered up. Eric?
Good morning, everyone. Eric Fanning, Vice Chair, through the chair. I make the motion to approve the division's proposed code adoption process, steps, and timeline for adopting the 2025 Oregon Mechanical Specialty Code, OMSC.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got plenty of seconds. Do we have any further discussion about this? Seeing none. Kai, I gotta look at her name. Okay, Katie, can we have the roll called, please?
Yes, sir. Walter Cottle,
Yay.
Kevin Duell,
Aye.
Chris Miller,
Aye.
Ted Zook,
Aye.
Edward Louie,
Aye.
Kevin Ferguson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Eric Fanning,
Aye.
and Chair Jay Hansen.
Aye.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here with us, because we did need a quorum for that, and that keeps us on timeline. So it's very much appreciated. Do we have any announcements? Do any board members have any announcements, or does staff have any announcements to bring before us before we adjourn? Not seeing none. I would like to take this moment. Is Mr. Greenway still in the room?
No, he left.
Darn it. Well, we can at least get this on record if we can. Pierre, does the division have access, not access to, but does the division provide any type of education for the general public regarding or around any of the systems that we have boards that determine code for? Any level of education that can be tapped into for the general public that might not know what an ERV, an HRV, IGFT, any of these things are.
Chair Hansen, for the record, Pierre Sabah. No, I do not believe the division has anything like that for the general public.
Would the DCBS possibly have something for the consumer to be able to tap into?
Through the division, Chair Hansen, Mark Heizer here once again. We do try and put out where the things such as, and they are available to the general public, the technical bulletins that we have one because because there are many ways to accomplish the whole house ventilation, there is a technical bulletin out there that sort of provides explanations of the systems and the many ways that they can be installed, and for several other systems that are out there. We don't provide specific things such as, like, here's your house and how to
Okay.
operate it, but to other resources such as something like Earth Advantage or other programs, or over at Oregon Department. Get people to other assistance that may be out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to investigate that just a little bit further. All right, there being no further business, and this is your last opportunity to interrupt me in that regard. There being no further business, the March 6th, 2024 Building Codes, the Oregon State Mechanical Board meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. The time is 10:21. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Chair
Have a
Hansen.
good day, everybody.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Take care, all. Have a great rest of your week.